Some souls wake up so deeply that the world starts to look unfamiliar, bright, trembling, honest. And that awakening, my friend, often comes with a price no one warned you about. There is a certain burden that comes with spiritual awakening, a weight that doesn't press on your shoulders, but settles quietly inside your chest. It is the weight of truth. Once a person becomes awake, truly awake, they lose the ability to pretend. They cannot force themselves to smile when something feels wrong. They cannot sit quietly in rooms where their spirit feels suffocated. They cannot bow to systems that feed on fear, ego, or false praise. Their soul simply refuses, and this inability to pretend, though beautiful, noble, and honest, becomes one of the greatest reasons they struggle financially. Because the world, as it is built today, often rewards the actors more than the authentic. It pays the ones who can put on a mask, maintain an illusion, or play a role. But spiritually awakened souls, they do not wear masks well. In fact, the moment they try to put one on, it cracks in their hands. There are people who can go to a job they despise, nod at a boss they do not respect, and push through 10-hour days with a heart that is numb and disconnected. The awakened cannot. Their spirit chokes in such places. They may try for a while to follow the traditional path, clocking in, clocking out, doing what they are told, but something inside them begins to rebel, not out of arrogance, not out of laziness, but out of alignment. Their soul knows when something is not right for them, and it will whisper, nudge, and eventually push them out of environments that are not meant for their growth. And when your spirit refuses to pretend, you often end up walking away from things before you have something else lined up. You walk away from jobs because they harm your peace. You walk away from opportunities that look good on paper but feel wrong in your heart. You walk away from people who drain your energy, even if those people were your connections, your network, your pathway to success. You walk away because staying feels like self-betrayal. And self-betrayal is something awakened souls simply cannot tolerate anymore. Pretending used to be easy before awakening. You could tell yourself that certain choices were practical or necessary. You could ignore the quiet discomfort. You could push through the exhaustion. You could convince yourself that your dreams were foolish and that real life required compromise. But after awakening, the inner voice grows louder, more insistent. It refuses to let you settle. It refuses to let you dim yourself. It refuses to let you move in ways that dishonor your truth. This refusal has consequences. While others advance by playing along, the awakened step back to reevaluate. While others say yes to everything, the awakened pause, sensing the energetic cost. While others push for status, the awakened push for meaning. And meaning rarely appears instantly. It takes patience. It takes silence. It takes inner work. And inner work often slows outer progress. People around them might say, "Why can't you just do it? Why can't you play the game like everyone else?" But they do not understand that pretending is a wound to the soul. The awakened feel things intensely. They sense when something is off in a way that will eventually harm them. They can feel the energy behind words, jobs, opportunities, and people. And when something feels misaligned, it becomes impossible for them to participate in it fully. They cannot exaggerate their abilities to grab attention. They cannot fake confidence to impress a room. They cannot flatter someone just to get ahead. They cannot force a smile to hide discomfort. And they cannot say yes to something that their spirit screams no to. Even when money is tight, even when bills are due, even when they don't have a backup plan, that inner voice does not care about convenience. It cares about truth. And truth always demands a price. Most spiritually awake people do not struggle financially because they lack skills, talent, or intelligence. They struggle because they lack the ability to betray their inner knowing. Their intuition becomes their guide, and intuition rarely chooses the easiest path. It chooses the path of integrity, and integrity is costly in a world that profits from compromise. When someone is spiritually asleep, they can accept almost anything. They can tolerate environments that drain them. They can work jobs with no meaning. They can hide parts of themselves to fit in. They can adjust their personality depending on who is watching. They can bend, fold, shrink, and reshape themselves endlessly just to survive. But when someone wakes up spiritually, their soul stops allowing that kind of shrinking. They can no longer mold themselves into shapes that do not belong to them. And when you cannot mold yourself, you often don't fit into the traditional systems that society has set up. You don't fit into corporate molds. You don't fit into shallow social circles. You don't fit into environments where people do things because that's the way things are done. You don't fit into jobs that demand blind obedience. You don't fit into the mindset of working yourself to death for things you don't believe in. You belong to a different rhythm, a different calling, a different truth. And until you discover how to build a life that aligns with your soul, there will be friction. That friction often shows up as financial struggle, not because you are failing, but because you are transitioning. You are leaving the world of pretending and entering the world of purpose. But purpose takes time to grow strong enough to support you. Your inability to pretend is not a weakness. It is a sign of spiritual maturity. It is the promise that your success must be authentic, not forced. It is the guarantee that whatever you build in this life will be real, aligned, and deeply meaningful. You do not struggle because you are lost. You struggle because you refuse to lose yourself. There comes a moment in the life of every spiritually awake person when work stops being just a way to survive and becomes something far more sacred. It becomes a reflection of who they are, what they value, and what they are here to offer the world. They can no longer separate their hands from their heart. They can no longer force themselves into tasks that feel empty. They cannot give their time, their energy, or their attention to something that has no meaning to their spirit. And this simple truth becomes one of the greatest reasons they struggle financially, because meaningful work may be fulfilling, but it is seldom the quickest path to money. Most people can take a job simply because it pays. They can put on the uniform, sit at the desk, punch in the hours, and leave their soul at the door. They can tolerate tasks that have nothing to do with their purpose. They can perform duties that feel robotic. They can convince themselves that this is life and that this is normal. But the spiritually awake cannot do this. Their spirit will not allow it. They feel the disconnect immediately, as if something inside them is quietly shutting down. Their work must mean something. It must carry a purpose. It must contribute to the world in a way that feels honest. It must create, uplift, serve, heal, or inspire. And if it does not, they cannot fully participate in it, not even for the sake of stability. They cannot function on autopilot because their soul is alive. And a living soul refuses to be trapped in work that feels dead. This need for meaningful work does not come from arrogance. It comes from awareness. When someone becomes spiritually awake, they understand the value of time. They understand that life is not a rehearsal, but a single unfolding moment. They understand that every hour spent doing something that drains them is a piece of their life they can never get back. And so they begin to crave work that nourishes them, work that feels aligned, work that reflects who they truly are. But this alignment is rarely found immediately. It is something that takes time to discover, to cultivate, to shape, and to build. While others may jump quickly into careers because the world expects them to, the awakened soul pauses. They ask questions most people never ask. What makes me feel alive? What am I here to contribute? What work feels like truth and not obligation? What path honors the calling inside me? The world is not built for people who pause. It is built for people who rush, who comply, who accept without questioning. And so the spiritually awake often feel out of place. They do not follow the timeline society sets for them. They may leave jobs that make sense on paper because those jobs starve their spirit. They may take risks that others do not understand because they refuse to betray their inner compass. They may start from scratch again and again, not because they are lost, but because they are committed to finding the work that resonates with their soul. And while this journey is noble, it is not easy. Purpose takes time to reveal itself. Meaningful work takes courage to pursue. The path of truth does not always come with a paycheck attached. Often, the first stages of discovering aligned work are filled with uncertainty, financial instability, and the fear that perhaps they are making life harder than it needs to be. But the spiritually awake cannot go backward once they have seen the truth. They cannot return to work that dulls their spirit. They cannot force enthusiasm for tasks that feel empty. They cannot pretend that a career is fulfilling when it is slowly draining the life out of them. Their spirit rejects anything that does not align with their purpose, and this rejection often costs them opportunities, promotions, and income that others might easily accept. They may watch people around them rise quickly in their careers, climbing ladders with speed and confidence, while the awakened soul remains still, questioning, searching. But what others climb, the awakened must build. They cannot climb a ladder that leads to a life they do not want. They must construct their own path, even if it takes longer, even if it requires sacrifice, even if society does not understand. They give their heart to the work they believe in, even when that work does not pay yet. They pour their soul into their craft, their creativity, their healing, their service, their message, their art. And while this devotion is beautiful, it often brings financial struggle in the beginning, not because they lack skill, but because they are trying to build something meaningful in a world that often rewards the superficial first. Their work must mean something, and meaning requires investment of time, energy, emotion, and self. It requires them to walk away from easy money because the cost to their spirit is too high. It requires them to choose passion before profit, knowing that profit may not come until much later. It requires them to trust their inner voice even when the world tells them to be practical. But their version of practicality is different. Practicality to them means choosing a life that will not suffocate them. Their work must feel honest. It must reflect truth. It must give back to the world. It must connect with their values. It must allow their spirit to breathe. And because of this, the spiritually awake often spend long periods in transition between the life they had and the life they are building. They may feel financially unstable, but spiritually aligned. They may feel materially uncertain, but inwardly at peace. They may not have everything society calls success, but they have something far more important: integrity. The world may call them unrealistic, but they know something the world does not, that when work becomes a reflection of the soul, it stops being work and becomes a calling. And callings do not shout, they whisper, they grow, they evolve slowly. And those who wait for their calling to mature may struggle financially for a season, but the life they eventually create will be one that money could never buy. There is something uniquely challenging about being spiritually awake in a world that often prefers comfort over growth. The awakened soul is built differently. They are not designed to stay where they no longer belong. They are not shaped to fit environments that shrink them. They are not wired to remain in places where their spirit cannot breathe. Growth is not a choice for them. It is a natural, unstoppable movement of their inner being. And because of this, they outgrow environments far quicker than the people around them. This constant outgrowing becomes one of the quiet reasons they struggle financially, not because they lack ability, but because they cannot stay long enough in certain places to play the game society expects of them. Most people can settle. They can adapt to environments that do not nurture them. They can adjust themselves to fit into spaces that do not truly align with who they are. They can ignore the discomfort for the sake of security. They can stay in the same roles for years, even decades, because familiarity feels safe. But the spiritually awake, they feel the shift, the moment an environment no longer matches their growth. They feel it in their chest first, a tightness, a heaviness, a quiet whisper telling them, this chapter is done. And once that whisper comes, no amount of logic, pressure, fear, or obligation can make them stay the same. The awakened move through life like trees breaking through old soil. Once they have grown beyond the limits of a space, they cannot force themselves to shrink back into it. Their consciousness expands, and suddenly the walls around them feel too small. A job that once felt tolerable becomes suffocating. A friendship that once brought comfort now feels draining. A routine that once worked becomes unbearable. It is not because they are ungrateful. It is because their spirit is evolving faster than the environment around them. They may begin a job with enthusiasm, giving their best, learning quickly, contributing with heart and integrity. But as they grow, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, something in that environment begins to feel misaligned. They start noticing the energy behind people's intentions. They see the cracks in systems, the lack of kindness, the absence of authenticity. What others ignore, they feel deeply. What others tolerate, they question. What others accept, they recognize as a cage. And so they begin to outgrow the space long before the space is ready to release them. Growth for them happens on the inside first. Long before a change is visible on the outside, their spirit has already moved on. They begin to think differently, feel differently, crave differently. They may sit at their desk or stand in their workplace and suddenly realize, I don't belong here anymore. Not because they are better than anyone else, but because they are no longer the version of themselves who accepted that environment in the first place. And this constant outgrowing means they rarely stay long enough to climb ladders or earn promotions in the traditional way. They leave early. They leave when their spirit says leave, even if the paycheck says stay. They walk away from jobs before securing the next one because something inside them knows that staying would be a betrayal of their evolution. They walk away from relationships that others think they should maintain because they can feel when the energy has shifted. They walk away from groups, crowds, and habits that no longer align with their growth, even if walking away means entering a period of uncertainty. This creates financial turbulence. The world rewards longevity, not alignment. It rewards staying put, not moving on. It rewards consistency, even if that consistency kills the soul slowly. But the awakened cannot sacrifice inner truth for outer stability. They cannot remain in places where they feel stagnant, unseen, unappreciated, or spiritually confined. They know when it is time to go, and they honor that knowing even when it leads them into the unknown. The difficult part is that they outgrow environments faster than society expects them to. Their transformation is rapid and continuous. They elevate their thinking, expand their awareness, raise their standards, and strengthen their intuition at a pace that others cannot always understand. While people around them may still be comfortable gossiping, complaining, or staying stuck, the awakened soul feels restless. Not because they are impatient, but because their inner evolution requires a new container, one that can hold who they are becoming. Every time they outgrow a space, they undergo another shedding. They release old identities, old roles, old dreams, old expectations. And shedding, while necessary, is not financially convenient. It leaves gaps, moments of transition where income is uncertain, where stability wavers, where nothing is promised except the truth that they cannot go back. People may call them inconsistent, unstable, impulsive, but the spiritually awake know that their movements are not impulsive. They are intuitive. They are guided. They are aligned with the deeper rhythms of their soul, not the superficial structures of society. They do not outgrow environments because they are difficult. They outgrow them because they evolve. Their growth is constant. They cannot pause it, silence it, or delay it just to fit a mold. Once they learn a lesson, they move forward. Once they understand a pattern, they break free from it. Once they feel the energy shift, they know it is time to move on. This inner sensitivity is both their gift and their burden. It leads them to higher levels of wisdom, but it also leads them away from stability before stability has had time to reward them. Financial struggle often follows because building a life that matches the frequency of your soul takes time. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be forced. It cannot be done inside environments that were never meant to hold your true self. The awakened understand this deeply. They would rather struggle temporarily than remain permanently in a space that dims their inner light. They outgrow workplaces, relationships, conversations, patterns, and versions of themselves rapidly. And for every environment they leave behind, there is a new one waiting, but there is always a space in between, a space of uncertainty, a space where finances may be tight, where the path is unclear, where the next step has not yet formed. But that space is not failure. It is transition. It is expansion. It is the natural consequence of someone who refuses to stop growing. And the spiritually awake, by nature, by essence, by truth, grow endlessly. There is something profoundly different about the way spiritually awake people view time, success, and wealth. They do not chase life in straight, frantic lines the way others do. They do not run after quick wins, fast rewards, or instant validation. Their eyes are set not on the next hour or the next week, but on the horizon of their entire lifetime. They think long-term because they feel deeply. They think in seasons, not moments. They are drawn to the slow, steady building of something real rather than the impulse to grab whatever glitters right now. And this long-term mindset, though wise and noble, often becomes another unseen reason they struggle financially, because the world favors those who sprint, not those who sow. While many people are conditioned to chase immediate profit, spiritually awake souls are guided by patience. They understand that anything meant to last must be grown, not grabbed. They know that shortcuts come with silent costs, and that rushing can destroy what was meant to be beautiful. They see beyond the excitement of the moment. They look at foundations, integrity, purpose, And because they are thinking far ahead, they often refuse opportunities that offer quick money but do not align with their deeper path. This refusal doesn't come from ego, it comes from clarity. They recognize that fast money usually comes tied to practices, environments, or energies that feel misaligned. It often demands compromise of values, emotions, identity. And the spiritually awake, once they see truth, cannot unsee it. They cannot step into opportunities where profit is prized over people, where money is valued more than meaning, or where speed matters more than honesty. Their soul blocks them from walking into anything that will eventually damage their peace, and so they choose the slower route, the route with learning, with building, with growth, the route where their vision matures like fruit on a tree, not like something grabbed off a shelf. They invest time in understanding themselves. They invest energy in developing skills that matter, not skills that simply make money quickly. They invest heart into work that aligns with their purpose, even if that purpose does not pay well at first. Others may laugh at their pace. Why don't you just take the easy job? Why don't you just do what everyone else is doing? Why don't you just take the fast money? But the awakened soul knows that easy money is rarely easy on the inside. It often leaves a residue of regret, emptiness, or misalignment. Fast money pulls people away from themselves, away from their purpose, away from the path that their spirit was quietly leading them toward. And spiritually awake, people refuse to pay that internal price. When they build something, they want it to be authentic. They want it to be sustainable. They want it to be something that grows with them, not something they must abandon when their spirit evolves again. This long-term thinking means they are willing to endure seasons of planting before the harvest arrives. They are willing to walk through periods where effort seems invisible, where progress is slow, where finances do not yet reflect the work they are doing. They trust the timing of their life in a way that the world cannot always understand. This trust often puts them in temporary financial struggle because long-term building does not yield instant rewards. While others may take jobs for the sake of salary, they take paths for the sake of purpose. While others may rush toward whatever is trending, they remain rooted in what is timeless. While others focus on making money quickly, they focus on creating something meaningful that will eventually make money naturally. Their patience is their strength, though in the eyes of society, it may look like hesitation or lack of ambition. But the spiritually awake do not fear starting small. They are not intimidated by slow beginnings. They know that small things done with integrity eventually become great things. They are not afraid to invest years into their craft, their vision, their calling. They know that mastering something deeply takes time, and they are willing to give that time. They do not measure success by immediate results. They measure it by alignment, growth, and truth. Even when they take risks, their risks are thoughtful. They are willing to step into the unknown, not for quick profit, but for deeper purpose. They would rather build a life that is spiritually fulfilling than one that is financially impressive, but emotionally empty. And so they accept financial instability as part of the path, not because they enjoy struggle, but because they trust the deeper architecture of their destiny. They think in terms of legacy, not lifestyle. They focus on contribution, not competition. They care about who they are becoming more than what they are collecting. They understand that wealth earned too quickly often evaporates, but wealth earned through purpose becomes rooted. They want the kind of prosperity that feels aligned, peaceful, and honest, not the kind that is fueled by desperation or fear. This long-term mindset creates a paradox. They appear slow in a world that worships speed, but in truth, they are building something far more enduring. They appear hesitant while others chase after opportunities blindly, but in truth, They are discerning. They appear financially unstable at times, but internally they are anchored in meaning, something far more valuable than money itself. They struggle financially because they refuse to force growth. They refuse to chase trends. They refuse to abandon their inner voice for the sake of a quick reward. They would rather plant a tree that will feed them for a lifetime than pick fruit that belongs to someone else. Their long-term vision often means they are living in the gap between the life they dream of and the life they are leaving behind. That gap can be financially tight, emotionally uncertain, and spiritually demanding. But it is also where character grows, where vision sharpens, where purpose becomes clear. They are not thinking about survival, they are thinking about legacy. They are not following the market, they are following their soul. They are not chasing fast money, they are building meaningful wealth. And meaningful wealth takes time. There is a particular tenderness in the hearts of those who are spiritually awake, a softness that does not make them weak, but makes them generous in ways the world cannot always understand. They give more than they receive, not because they are trying to impress anyone, not because they want recognition, not even because they expect anything in return. They give because it is in their nature. It is the way their spirit breathes. It is the way their soul expresses itself. But in a world that often takes without giving back, this beautiful trait becomes another hidden reason they struggle financially. They give time, energy, love, understanding, and sometimes money they don't even have because they feel the needs of others so deeply. When someone around them is hurting, they cannot turn away. When someone they love is struggling, they cannot stay silent. When someone needs help, they step forward instinctively, even when stepping forward costs them something. And because they feel people's emotions so intensely, they often put the needs of others before their own, forgetting that their own cup needs filling too. People come to them because they radiate warmth. They are the listening ears in a noisy world. They are the open arms in a world full of closed doors. They are the steady lights in places where many stumble in the dark. But being a light takes fuel, and that fuel is often drained faster than it is replenished. They pour and pour, rarely stopping to notice how much of themselves they are giving away. They give encouragement even when they need encouragement. They give support even when their own foundation is shaking. They give kindness even when their own hearts are tired. This imbalance over time takes a toll, not just emotionally, but financially. Because giving is not only an emotional act, it is also an energetic and practical one. When you give too much of yourself, you exhaust the time and energy that could have been used to build, create, or grow your own stability. You spend hours listening to someone else when you needed those hours to work on your dreams. You lend money to someone in need when you should have saved it for your own responsibilities. You step into the role of healer so often that you forget you, too, are allowed to be cared for. Spiritually awake souls often attract people who take more than they give, not always intentionally, but because givers naturally draw those who are hungry for warmth, validation, and support. The awake soul becomes the emotional anchor in relationships, the reliable one in friendships, the understanding one in families, the dependable one at work. And while this role is noble, it is heavy. It leaves little room for them to receive. Some people around them assume they are strong enough to handle anything. Others assume they do not need help because they never ask for it. And some people, knowingly or unknowingly, take advantage of their giving spirit. They become the ones who show up when others disappear, the ones who offer when others demand, the ones who give effort while others give excuses. And the imbalance grows quietly, unnoticed by those benefiting from their generosity, but painfully felt by the giver whose resources slowly shrink. In financial matters, this generosity can manifest in practical ways. They might undercharge for their work because their heart values service over money. They might stay late to help without asking for compensation because they care more about completion than credit. They might give discounts, favors, or free support because they feel guilty putting a price on their gifts. They are often uncomfortable receiving payment for something that comes naturally to them, forgetting that even natural gifts require energy, time, and mastery. And when they finally try to set boundaries, guilt creeps in. They worry that saying no makes them selfish. They fear disappointing people. They fear withdrawing their energy will make others leave. So they continue giving, even when their spirit whispers that it is too much. What complicates things further is that spiritually awake souls see the potential in others before they see the harm. They see wounded hearts behind cold behavior. They see softness beneath anger. They see goodness hidden under pain. They forgive easily because they understand deeply. They offer second chances, third chances, and sometimes chances far beyond what their own well-being can afford. This compassion is beautiful, but costly. There are times when the spiritually awake give so much emotional labor that they have no energy left to invest in their own dreams. They are so busy supporting others that they delay supporting themselves. Their financial goals are pushed aside because someone else needed them urgently. Their boundaries are loosened because they don't want to cause hurt. Their own growth slows down because they keep trying to water other people's gardens first. They give love that is steady, pure, unmeasured. But love alone does not pay bills. They give guidance, stability, and wisdom. But wisdom alone does not build wealth. They give emotional presence, which is one of the most valuable gifts in the world. But the world rarely compensates emotional presence the same way it compensates productivity or strategy. And so they struggle, not because they lack ability, intelligence, or drive, but because their heart is busy carrying more than its share. Yet even with all this, they rarely regret giving. What they regret is giving in places that never returned a fraction of what was offered. What they regret is losing pieces of themselves to people who never intended to reciprocate. What they regret is realizing too late that they had the right to receive just as much as they give. Their giving nature is not the problem. It is the imbalance that hurts them. They were meant to give, but they were also meant to receive. And until they learn this truth, truly learn it, financial struggles remain a quiet shadow behind their generosity. But even with these struggles, their giving spirit remains a gift to the world. It is what makes them rare, what makes them powerful, what makes them unforgettable. It is the source of their spiritual richness. Even when material richness takes longer to arrive, there is a quiet heaviness that follows spiritually awake people, even when they smile, even when they show up strong, even when they stand in their light. It is not weakness, it is not fragility, it is the imprint of every moment they had to rise when life tried to break them. The world sees their grace, their compassion, their patience, but few see the wounds underneath, the parts of them still stitching themselves back together while they continue to move forward. When someone has walked through fire, their spirit grows wiser, but their heart is often left tender, and this tenderness affects the way they move through the world, the way they earn, the way they interact with money, with opportunities, with people. Spiritually awake people often struggle financially because they are carrying emotional weight that others cannot see. They have survived losses, betrayals, disappointments, and transformations that force them to rebuild from scratch, not once but many times. Healing becomes their daily commitment, a silent work that requires energy, focus, and inner strength. And when so much energy goes inward, it's easy to fall behind in the outer world where money demands speed, sharpness, and constant performance. They are not slow because they are unambitious. They are slow because they are careful with themselves. They are thoughtful. They are trying to move in ways that don't reopen old wounds. Most people chase success from a place of hunger, ego, comparison, or pressure. But the spiritually awake are chasing peace. They want success, yes, but not at the cost of their mental health or emotional stability. They have seen what it feels like to hit rock bottom, and the memory of that darkness makes them protective of their spirit. So instead of grinding themselves into exhaustion, they move with intention. Instead of forcing themselves into harmful environments, they pause. Instead of rushing into opportunities that don't align with their soul, they step back. Healing teaches restraint, and restraint often slows financial gain. But they would rather move slowly with integrity than quickly with pain. Those who are still healing often doubt themselves in ways that impact their financial journey. When you've been hurt deeply by people you trusted, by circumstances you couldn't control, by dreams that collapsed, you lose some of the ease with which others take risks. Every step feels heavier. Every new venture feels like a test. Every opportunity feels like it could be another place where things fall apart. While others jump without thinking, the spiritually awake take time to breathe, to evaluate, to reconnect with their intuition. They want to feel safe as they move, and that desire for safety sometimes keeps them from chasing the big leaps that bring fast money. Their wounds also make them more empathetic, and empathy, while beautiful, is not always profitable. They choose compassion over competition. They choose honesty over manipulation. They choose humanity over strategy. And in a world that often rewards the ruthless, gentle souls get overlooked, underestimated, or taken advantage of. They give second chances. They trust too deeply. They help people who would never help them in return, not because they are foolish, but because they know what suffering feels like, and they do not want to add to anyone's burden. But this heart-led way of living can attract people who drain their energy, time, and resources. They give emotionally, mentally, and even financially, and sometimes they give so much that they forget to protect themselves. Healing also requires solitude, and solitude limits opportunities. Spiritually awake people often withdraw for long periods to reflect, to process, to rest. They disappear from social circles, from networking events, from environments where connections could lead to financial growth. They are not hiding, they are recovering. They are regaining their strength, but the outer world keeps moving while they are still catching their breath. Money loves movement, but healing loves stillness. And these two forces often collide within them, pulling them in opposite directions. Another reason spiritually awake people struggle financially is because their pain shapes their priorities. When someone is healing, they value meaning more than money, truth more than titles, inner alignment more than external approval. They refuse to chase careers or lifestyles that go against their soul. If a job drains them, they leave. If a partnership feels wrong, they step back. If a path harms their peace, they walk away, even if it pays well. Their wounds teach them that no amount of income is worth emotional collapse. So they choose slower, quieter, more authentic paths, even if those paths do not immediately bring prosperity. But perhaps the most powerful reason they struggle is this: Deep wounds make a person sensitive to energy, and energy affects everything. The spiritually awake can feel dishonesty. They can sense manipulation. They can pick up on environments that are not aligned with them. And because of this, they avoid many opportunities that might have made them financially successful, but spiritually empty. Their intuition leads the way, but intuition does not always bring wealth quickly. It brings it eventually, but slowly, often after long seasons of inner work. Yet even as they struggle, there is something extraordinary about them. Their wounds have not hardened them. They have softened them. They have made them wise, compassionate, and deeply connected to the world. They carry scars, but they carry them with dignity. Their healing journey may slow them down financially, but it also shapes them into people of depth, authenticity, and resilience. And sometimes the universe delays their success, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because when spiritually awake, people finally rise, when the healing is complete, when the wounds have turned into wisdom, when their spirit is strong enough to hold abundance. Their success comes with a foundation that cannot be shaken, a purpose that cannot be stolen, and a glow that cannot be dimmed. There is a quiet battle inside spiritually awake people, a conflict that rises every time they try to fit into a world that measures success with ladders built of titles, salaries, possessions, and achievements that look impressive on paper but feel empty in the soul. These ladders are straight, narrow, predictable. You climb one step, then another, until you reach a place the world calls successful. But spiritually awake people were never meant for ladders. They were meant for paths, winding, soulful, unpredictable paths that require intuition more than strategy, purpose more than ambition, and faith more than logic. Their calling does not fit the blueprint society hands to them. And because of that, they often move through life feeling out of place, misunderstood, or even behind according to conventional standards. But they are not behind. They are simply walking a road that no one else can see. From a young age, these individuals feel the pressure to be practical, to be realistic, to choose careers that guarantee income rather than fulfillment. They hear voices telling them to pursue stability over passion, tradition over innovation, safety over soul, but something inside them resists. They try to follow the map everyone else follows, but every step feels heavy, unnatural, draining. They show up to jobs that look respectable but feel suffocating. They sit in meetings that leave them questioning why they are even there. They chase promotions they don't want, goals they didn't choose, dreams that were never theirs. And with every step they take up society's ladder, their spirit feels smaller, quieter, dimmer. The truth is simple. Their calling lives outside the structure that society celebrates. Their gift, whether it's healing, teaching, creating, guiding, inspiring, transforming, or awakening others, does not fit neatly into a corporate job description or a traditional career path. Their talents bloom in spaces that society often overlooks or undervalues. In art, in compassion, in service, in expression, in intuition, in storytelling, in community building, in spiritual work. And because these gifts do not immediately translate into financial stability, spiritually awake people often find themselves struggling, at least in the early stages of their journey. They are not chasing wealth, they are chasing alignment. They are not chasing approval, they are chasing authenticity. They are not chasing status, they are chasing purpose. And purpose rarely pays well at the beginning. The world tells them to pick something sensible, but their spirit refuses to settle for sensible when it was built for meaningful. So they follow their calling even when the path is unclear, even when the income is uncertain, even when people around them question their choices. Because of this, they often start later than others, or they take breaks, or they shift directions entirely. They take time to listen to themselves, to find clarity, to discover where their soul leads them. And while society rewards those who follow the straight line, the spiritually awake follow a spiral, sometimes forward, sometimes inward, sometimes backward, all in service of growing into the person they are meant to become. On the outside, it may look like they lack focus, ambition, or consistency. But on the inside, they are in a sacred process of becoming. They are shedding layers of conditioning. They are releasing expectations. They are dismantling every part of themselves that was built to please others. And that inner work takes time that society does not always understand. Their calling often requires them to create something new rather than fit into something old. Their work doesn't look like a job, it looks like a mission. It looks like building from scratch, trusting the unknown, stepping into arenas where there is no blueprint, only intuition. The latter has clear steps, clear rules, clear rewards, but their path offers none of that certainty. Their path demands courage, it demands patience, it demands a willingness to be misunderstood by almost everyone around them, and that misunderstanding affects their finances. When your calling does not match society's structure, you often have to build your own structure. You have to create your own opportunities. You have to carve out your own space. You have to develop your own voice, your own clients, your own audience, your own brand, your own foundation. Building this takes far longer than simply climbing a ladder someone else designed. Another challenge they face is that their work is often rooted in invisible things. Healing energy, emotional wisdom, creative insight, spiritual truth, intuition, empathy, human connection. These are things the world benefits from deeply but rarely values financially. People want their light, but they don't always want to pay for it. They want their emotional labor, but they don't always offer anything in return. They want the comfort, the clarity, the inspiration, the transformation, but not the exchange that sustains the giver. And the spiritually awake often give because giving is in their nature. They don't measure their impact in money, they measure it in meaning, but meaning does not always pay the bills. Their calling is often seasonal rather than constant. They go through phases of growth, then stillness, activity, then reflection, output, then retreat. They are guided by intuition rather than schedules, by inspiration rather than deadlines. And because they do not force their creativity or push when their spirit says rest, they may experience irregular income or inconsistent progress. But their path is not about following society's rhythm. It is about honoring their own. Yet even through financial struggle, they remain faithful to the road they walk. Because deep down, they know something profound. Their calling was not given to them by accident. The world may not understand their timing, their choices, or their journey, but their soul does. And they trust that the purpose planted inside them is bigger than any paycheck, any title, any ladder. In time, those who follow their true calling often discover success on their own terms. Success that is sustainable because it is aligned, meaningful because it is authentic, abundant because it is rooted in truth. But the early struggle is real and it is heavy, not because they are incapable, but because they are carving a path that few have the courage to walk. They struggle financially because they were not built to climb the ladder. They were built to build worlds of healing, creativity, compassion, wisdom, and awakening. Their journey is not upward, it is inward, not linear, It is expansive, not driven by society, driven by spirit. If you are spiritually awake and struggling financially, hear this. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply becoming who you were always meant to be. And sometimes that becoming requires a season of breaking, stretching, and rebuilding. But the moment your purpose and your power finally meet, the world will open its hands and everything you once worried about will begin to flow toward you with ease. Until then, walk tall, stay true, honor your spirit. Your path may be different, but it is sacred. And sacred things bloom slowly, but they bloom.